It's kind of funny. Every time I tell people the name of my hometown city, they kind of do like a double take. They're always like, really? Is that the name? Because it's Coon Rapids, Minnesota. And way back in the day when I started elementary school with my sister, I'd have to say the school is made up of about 99.9% Caucasian people, teachers and students. And it was no big deal when we started off because when you're in kindergarten and first grade, it seems like kids are just kids. You know, we just played with each other. We didn't really judge each other, even if we did notice differences in each other. And so everything was pretty cool until about third grade. And that's when things started to hit the fan for me. Out of nowhere, it seemed like just overnight, people were coming up to me and doing like this thing where you stretch your eyes out, and they were calling me like China boy and stuff. And I remember them just making up all these names that sounded remotely Asian. Like they would call me like karate or kung fu or chop suey or, you know, Asian boy, just anything they could think of. And they also had these weird rhymes where I always wondered where they learned these from because we didn't have the internet back then. But it was just word of mouth, I guess, back then. But they would say Chinese, Japanese, dirty knees, look at these. That was a huge hit back then. So because I started getting all this ridicule, I really started to feel self-conscious because it was then that I really started to feel different from everybody else. You know, I'd be in the bathroom and it was like this big cement bathroom. A lot of things were kind of prison-like. So we're in this concrete bathroom and there's a huge group of about 6 boys that were always, you know, together. They were just friends that hung out and they would tease me the most. And I recall one time being in the bathroom and just looking in the mirror and seeing how I looked and then seeing all of them laughing together. And I could feel this self-consciousness just bogging down on me. Like every molecule in my body was now self-conscious of being different. I'd go home on the bus and just wish I wasn't half Korean. You know, my other side is Norwegian and Swedish, and I thought, why can't I just be 100% Swedish or something? Then at least they wouldn't make fun of me. Although other kids did get made fun of, but for me, it was because of the way I looked that I was getting so much hell. Now, the bathroom was bad, but the worst was lunch, because all of a sudden you're in this huge auditorium. We had a pretty big school, actually, and I just felt like I was out in the open. Like an attack could come from any direction. And so I would try to sit in the corner, like the back corner, because at least then somebody couldn't sneak up on me. So that was just the way I had to think. Once again, it's kind of like prison thinking or something. Well, those 6 boys would sit together, and wherever they sat, I would try to sit on the opposite back corner. But no matter what I did, I had to pass them to go up and bring my tray to the tray washing lady. And every day that was hell because I'd put my head down and I'd walk past and one kid inevitably would go, hey, it's Chinese boy. Look, it's Bruce Lee. And then they would all just chime in. So I would just like try to get through as fast as possible. And one time, I'll never forget this, I gave my tray to the lunch lady. And instead of looking at me with pity, because I looked up at her, she gave me this real strong, bold look. And she said, stay strong. And I was like, wow, an adult just told me that. I felt like I had like an ally suddenly, like someone's here to watch, you know, watch over me if anything goes down. It was also a really good message because I was feeling really defeated and really weak. The way she looked at me and her words gave me this jolt of energy, like this, okay, I'll try to stay strong, you know? Maybe there is hope. Now, you might be wondering if my sister had to go through the same stuff I went through. But she really didn't because she was a year older than me and everybody thought she was Hawaiian. And back then, Hawaii seemed like, you know, paradise. So whenever a kid would say that over summer vacation, their family went to Hawaii, everybody'd be like, oh, wow, Hawaii. So yeah, she kind of had it easy in that department just because she did look Hawaiian. I, on the other hand, looked very Asian, you know, not just because of my features, but my mom would actually give me a bowl haircut. I don't know if it's a Korean thing or something, but she'd put a bowl on my head, do the old bangs, and then she would actually take a razor blade and like scrape your hair. I don't know if she's a psycho. Maybe she's the only one who's ever done that. Maybe it's a Korean thing. I'm not sure, but it was pure hell. So I had the bowl haircut. You know, I've always had sort of rabbit teeth, and it just wasn't helping my case. Now things began to turn around for me, and it's a really weird way how it did. They used to sell us pencils. They were NFL pencils. This is way back in the day. It was a huge thing. So in the morning, you could go in the office and put a quarter in a machine and you would get 2 pencils. And there were always certain teams that the bullies, you know, the popular kids or whatever always wanted. And one of them was the Vikings because we were in Minnesota. The other one, for some reason, was the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I happened to get that pencil. I didn't even know it was popular. I was just like, cool, I got a Pittsburgh Steelers and like a Bengals pencil. So I walked by with my pencils at lunch and one of the bully kids was like, hey, is that a Pittsburgh Steelers pencil? I'm like, yeah. And then something went off in my head like a light bulb. I'm like, You want to trade? And he gave me some team, the Chargers or something, I'm not sure. But we traded and they left me alone for a couple days after that. But unfortunately, I ran out of quarters, so I couldn't keep being the pencil pimp, you know? I couldn't just be the guy in prison giving out cigarettes, you know, save my ass, if you will. I just knew I had to do something because I didn't want to go the rest of my school life. Back then, it seems like your whole life, being afraid every single day that you're either going to get teased or beat up. So at the time, I really wasn't good at anything. You know, I had little hobbies. You know, I like to watch TV. It's not really a hobby, but I would play Atari. I had a 5200 back in the day, and I would watch movies and I would do, you know, I would look through magazines and read books, but I really didn't have anything that I was obsessed with. Well, I was looking through an old picture book and I saw photos of my dad as like a 20-year-old, and he was wearing a karate uniform. And in one picture, he was meditating, and the other one, he was like kicking really high and breaking a board. And I thought, this is so cool. And so I started to get a little bit interested in martial arts. And because I watched a lot of movies, you know, I tried to stay up late. And one of the 4 channels we had back then would show a thing called Kung Fu Theater. And so I started to watch these ninja movies, these karate movies, and one movie in particular had Bruce Lee. And that changed everything for me. I'm like, here's this Asian guy kicking everyone's ass. You know, he's ripped. He's just, you know, such a cool dude. And I'm like, that's weird. I'm half Asian too. I didn't know if we were the same type of Asian, but I was just like, that's really cool to see that. Now, it's not just because he was Asian that I was that excited about it, because I did see a Chuck Norris movie too. It was just the thought of being able to defend yourself that really grabbed me. Now, this became one of my very first obsessions. All I wanted to do was practice karate moves. You know, I would just copy what I saw in the movies. And I started making weapons out of household items. So we had a push broom and I unscrewed the handle of it, and that became my bow staff. I begged my dad to take me to this martial arts store in St. Paul called Rising Sun. By the way, it's still there. I went there last year and the lady is still working there. The same lady. It's so cool. So there I bought a ninja uniform and I bought some foam rubber nunchucks, and I got really good at that. You know, I whacked myself plenty of times, but I got really good and I put together this routine. So I had like a karate routine mixed with nunchucks, and then I'd pull out the bow staff and just twirl that and try to be cool. Of course, my dad showed me a couple moves because even though he didn't get his black belt, he still trained long enough to be able to show me a couple things. All of a sudden, one day our teacher goes, yeah, we're going to have a talent show. I got so excited. I went home that night and I perfected the routine that I had already been doing. And so by the time it was time for the talent show, I was ready. I was on top of my game. All the other kids did stuff, you know, like kids do. They did some singing, some dancing stuff. There was like a cheerleading act. And then I go up and I had my nunchucks on my belt and I had the bow staff off to the side. And as soon as I pulled out the nunchucks, I remember the kids going, whoa, and just that feeling of everyone being impressed just because I had these rubber nunchucks. Well, unfortunately, I was so nervous that I started out my entire routine backwards. But I knew it so well that I was able to do it flawlessly backwards. And then when I got done with the nunchucks, I picked up the bow staff and I was able to flip it and then grab it. And I looked right at the girl that I had a crush on right as I did that. It was like one of those pivotal moments in your life that you just have locked into your memory. So I felt really cool. Anyway, I ended up winning. And my teacher came up to me afterwards and she goes, you won because a lot of these kids are like doing their hobbies, but this seems like a real talent that you seem to have. And I was getting all this positive feedback from this little karate demonstration that I did. So my brain is changing. You know, I'm starting to take in, okay, if you do this, this happens. And then the craziest thing happened. That group of bullies, the 5 or 6 kids, they all but one totally did a 180. And they started being nice to me. And one of them, named Brandon, I won't say his last name, I still remember it. He came up to me and he used to be the one that teased me the most. And he was like, hey man, that was so cool. He's like, is there any way you could come over sometime and just show me a couple moves? So I actually went over to this kid's house, I remember, and I showed him some kicks and stuff. And we never hung out after that, but I just thought that was so mind-blowing. Oh, I forgot to tell you that one of the girls that did the cheerleading routine was the girl I had a crush on. And stupidly, I took my first place ribbon and I gave it to her. You know, just like, here, you deserve to win. I thought I was being a stud or something, but she was just like, okay, thanks, and just walked away. But realizing the difference in how I was treated before and after the talent show really changed my brain. Like, it rewired my circuits. And it basically taught me that if I got really good at stuff, like obsessive level good at stuff, that I would have a much better path through life. That all the difficulties that come up in life can be overcome if I just get really good and master things. And that's why this video has a lot to do with guitar. Because after my martial arts phase, I got into baseball, and all I wanted to do was be Frank Viola from the Minnesota Twins, and I'd practice by throwing a tennis ball against my garage door every day, obsessively. After that, it was guitar, drums, Metallica entered my life, and that was it. That was what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So I spent all my time doing that. But I get people all the time asking, how the hell did you practice 8 to 10 hours on guitar every day? And I'm like, man, I have to trace it back to the old school days where I was getting bullied, and the only way out of it was to get good at something. And I can't help it now. I don't know if it's to a dangerous level that I get so obsessed, but I'm glad I went through all that. I'm glad I walked through the fire because it taught me a lot. And to this day, I make my living playing guitar and doing music, so it paid off for me. I am so glad though that I did not have the internet back then, because I'm afraid I would have been distracted. I'm sure I would have still tried things, but I don't think I would have been as laser focused if I had all these distractions that are out today. So that's something that's kind of a downside of all this technology out right now. It's easy to just get lost in it. And also, I'm not the only one that got bullied like I talked about before. My cousin actually got bullied way worse than I did, and he's not even half Asian. So it was so bad for him, he had to actually make wooden nunchucks, like homemade nunchucks, to keep with him to defend himself, because these kids were trying to beat him up daily. So this isn't some sob story for me. I just want to let you know that those kind of things lead you to make some decisions. And I feel like I could have went a very dark way, but I chose at least a positive thing, martial arts. And so did my cousin, by the way. He also got into guitar, and so we're both like martial arts musician type. Maybe it's in our bloodline, but I think we're both very grateful for choosing that path versus what else is out there, And another bright side is that back when I was ashamed of being half Korean because I was getting teased so much, after all that I went through and getting decent at martial arts, I'm happy to be who I am now. So it's kind of a full circle type of thing. So let me know in the comments section if you went through anything similar to that, or if you're maybe right now going through some tough times. And hopefully this could be a positive message for you that maybe, it's time to really get into something, put away the distractions, and get really good at something that you're, can get obsessed with, maybe something you're already interested in, but you just haven't put enough time into. I would love it if it was guitar or music related, but whatever you love, that's great. And thank you so much for listening to my story. I guess we'll catch you at the next video. Thanks again for watching. Bye-bye.